Andrew Allsbury from CARVlab, and he's a serial entrepreneur, and he started a skateboard company among his other companies, including Iceberg, called CARVlab, where he does custom electric skateboards and parts and all kinds of things. So, welcome, Andrew.
Great to be with you guys.
And you're in the USA, right? Whereabout are you in the USA?
Yeah. So we're in Boise, Idaho. So kind of middle of the country, sorta, and a little west leaning. But yeah, we've been probably least affected by the coronavirus where I'm at out of a lot of the states.
Right.
But shortly, not too far from us, we have Sun Valley, which is our big mountain resort town. They actually have the highest COVID-19 rates, I think, in the country right now.
Well, have you seen the figures coming out of the UK? They're pretty high compared to the States.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. I mean, looking all over, it's just, this has been such a wild year. I've never seen anything like it. For sure.
I don't think many people have, to be honest. Yeah. But anyway, so Andrew, tell us about how you got into sort of electric skateboarding, what your motivations were for starting CARVlabs.
So early on in my business career, I was actually in video production, and that's what I did for a long time. I was a commercial video producer, and working, and where I got my start was in skateboarding and sports. Did that for a long time on the commercial side, loved it, but was kind of getting to the point where honestly I felt like everything I had learned, or not everything I had learned, basically I was having to make a choice between where we wanted to grow to and where we wanted to be in the future. And instead, I kind of went, you know what, how about the video production company support some other ventures instead? So that was where we started branching out. We, started our janitorial company. We started our skateboard company in Iceberg. And along the lines, I had to basically go from being a marketing exec and video producer to learning CNC machining, learning the electrical engineering side, product design, CAD, all that stuff. And what I realized once I started was that I absolutely loved it.
So you went from your marketing career and you learned you could sell to actually building products and using everything and actually selling them and making all the marketing and everything yourself.
Absolutely. And it was looking at this going, as a creative, we're taught that we're not engineers, right? I mean, that's you're usually your right brain, left brain. But in reality, what I found is that the ultimate form of creativity is the tangible. So I'm able to apply the same creativity that I was applying, to video and to graphics and everything else. But instead, I'm walking away, instead of with an intellectual property, I'm walking away with a tangible item. And I don't know that it's the same for everybody, but when I got into it, it just opened up a whole different level of creativity, and really drove my passion. And then when we started the e-skating thing, I'm looking at what other companies are doing, and I'm going, we can get in and we can compete and kind of make the same thing. But being that this is not my 100% day job, I want to do the things that excite me. I want to make the parts for these boards that are really going to move the industry forward. I'm a big speed guy. That's, it's always the off-road, skateboarding, anything I can do to go fast. So to me, any skate that does 20 miles an hour is like, man, it's fun for about 5 minutes. I think my first board my wife got me was an Evolve, Gen 2 bamboo single motor. It was fine on street tires for a couple days, and then I put the AT kit on, and it couldn't get my fat butt up a hill. And I went, okay, this is now your board. And I went and bought something else, and eventually realized there was nothing on the market that I could buy that could do what I wanted to do. So that was kind of the beginning of producing them, was realizing that, even on the hobby side, there wasn't a board that went fast enough for me. There wasn't a board that had the range I wanted or the setup I wanted. So we fixed it ourselves and realized others wanted that as well.
So you focused on start with at least the sort of high horsepower electric skateboards.
Yes, that is. I mean, truly, my love is when we start talking about kilowatts. That's where I get excited, and that feeling when you punch the throttle, where you feel like you're going to be thrown off the board. That's what I love. I mean, to me, I wanted to have to lean into my board hard.
So what other technical challenges do you think we're facing in order to try and hit that higher speed, higher performance without compromising the stability?
So in my opinion, the biggest factor we have to start with is the batteries. Right now, we are as an e-skate community, we ignore a lot the fact that our batteries cannot keep up with what our motors could do. And people kind of talk around it. I see it with a lot of companies where it's like, hey, we've got these 2 motors on here that can each do 5,000 watts each. What they don't tell you is that the battery in there, the one battery that powers both motors, is only capable of 2,000 watts. And that's at max capacity, full, no sag, nothing. So, but a lot of people don't even realize that. They think, hey, I'm buying this board. It's got 3,000 watt motors. I'm going to get 6,000 watts. It's very deceptive. And it's something that if people would just, I guess if somebody would put the information out there right, so people would understand that it's the battery to the BMS, to the vest, to the motors, with all your wiring and your soldering in between affecting everything that creates that powertrain. People just get tied up in one thing. They want to talk about kV. They want to talk about amps. They want to talk about volts, S's. You never even hear volts. You hear, 12S is so much faster than 10S. Well, why? Why is that? And people need to understand that.
So saying it's a bit like building a gaming PC where people buy a expensive processor and maybe they don't match it with enough memory or good enough graphics card, and a bottleneck forms and everything doesn't perform the way it's supposed to individually. You know what I mean? Exactly what you're saying. It's funny because I guess probably part of where my neuroses comes from on this is from building video editing for our team. Because you do know that you could have one thing in there, one little bit, a $15 part that slows down a $5,000 computer to have. I mean, it's so easy to have that. And then the other side, the e-skate argument. So there seems to be a lot of pushback that I've seen in the community from water cooling, and in our case, water cooling with oil cooling. So, or even forced cooling or active cooling at all. And a lot of it is coming from the skateboard side, where people really want that like completely bulletproof, you can slam it on the ground when you don't land a trick kind of feel. But in reality, when you create large amounts of power, you have to have somewhere to put the heat. The advantage water cooling gives you over regular cooling is heat dissipation. Is that right?
Yeah. So like a good example would be you could take the same motor, the 36374 motor, right? So say it's set up to run 3,000 watt burst. That's how much heat it can handle. Now, if you put that thing in a water jacket, you're going to get closer to 4,200 watts probably before you reach the same temperature, because you're actively cooling it with water running through it and going to a radiator. People hear that and they think, oh my God, that sounds so complicated. It's not. And I'm sure you know this. It sounds like you've done some computer building. Water cooling is quite simple. And if it's done well, it's here. I mean, this pump would be capable of running a decent water cooling system for 2 motors with a little reservoir. And people just aren't going there yet. And they seem like they're afraid of this, of introducing water into the system. But that ability to cool off your desk, to cool off your motors, opens up huge channels. Right now, just buying off of Flipski's parts that they have available, they've got a motor on there and a vest that I want to say the motor is capable of something like 8 kilowatts or 7 kilowatts by itself if it's water cooled, and it's up to 16S. And then they have individual vests that are water cooled. They can go up to 200 amps sustained per channel at up to, I think it's 14S. So these are already, I mean, this is an amount of power, if you had a battery to run that we are not seeing in any other boards. I mean, if I remember correctly, the Pantera Baja board that was talked so extensively about was pushing something close to 6 or 8 kilowatts when it finally hit market. And that's at burst. You're not even about any kind of sustained power. Granted, it's a lot of power compared to boards now, but a 40, 50 kilowatt board, all-wheel drive, is not outside the realm of reason at all right now.
So if you were to give some advice to someone who is building their own electric skateboard, what would you say the main bottlenecks to make a fast electric skateboard you got to look out for in building?
So the area we're looking into right now is the batteries, because that's where I see the most mistakes being made. And that's primarily because I'm going to switch you guys over to a different camera angle so I can kind of show you some stuff as we're going here. Sorry, guys, I've got some decorations up as we had a 2-year-old's birthday this week in quarantine. But what I've done here is I have set up just a little LED hooked up to a LiPo battery and a wine glass. And, this is off-the-shelf mineral oil. Okay, you can buy this at any Target, or Walmart. Okay, what we're told pretty much our entire lives is that liquids and electronics do not mix. Honestly, the first time I poured this stuff over a vest, I almost cried until I realized it wasn't going to flow. But as you can see, this does fully mix with liquid with no problem. And what it's now has done, minus the little pockets of oxygen you can see in there, is we've separated oxygen from that battery. It is not interfering with the electrical flow. It has not stopped the light. It is taking the heat away from the battery and moving it up to the top where the hot oil is going to sit. And most importantly, there's no oxygen around this battery, which means there can be no lithium fire. As long as it sits in this, I could literally run a reverse current into this battery as hard as I want. It will fry the battery. That battery will not catch fire. It is not possible. Right. And that's where our new product's coming in. What we're going to be doing is utilizing high power, off-the-shelf LiPos. These just happen to be the ones we're using for testing at the moment. But as you can see, 100C rating, 7.6 volts, 6,000 mAh. So that battery in itself isn't going to do much for your e-skate. However, once we take them and we put them into a modular smart system where they chain together, so each one will end up being 4S, so 16.8 volts, and you will be able to chain it in either parallel or in series with other modules. The cool thing about this is because of the cooling and because of the safety factors, we're able to integrate current monitoring up to 500 amps sustained. We're able to have voltage on each cell, smart communicated to your phone or your vest. We're able to have temperature monitoring on every cell, as well as on the entire system in the oil. And we're able to also have a charge BMS built into the system, as well as a 600 amp fuse. So sorry, it's a lot of technical jargon, but basically you end up with an extremely safe battery that is capable of 500 amp sustained versus most of our batteries out there right now that even in large packs are running 50 amps, 60 amps, 100 amps max. So this brings a lot. Oh, sure.
Sorry, and I was just going to say as well, with that level of monitoring, surely that's going to help with the lifespan of the battery as well, making sure that none of the batteries are getting fried, taking too much of the load.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you touched on the value side, because one of the things that I was doing when I was doing this is what pisses me off is when you buy your normal e-skate battery, it's got a lifespan and you huck it, and it's all done. With these, what I was trying to do is build a serviceable system. So at this point, because you're dealing with lipolymer, which has a little less of a life cycle, but basically what I want to be able to have is a system where you've got this battery that gives you a really solid year to 2 years of extreme power. You can monitor everything so it's going to last as long as it can. But even when that battery dies, you send your module back in, and it's a small amount to replace the cells, and now you've got a whole new system. So or it can be done, yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So Andrew, I just want to lay this out in layman's terms, right? And you correct me if I'm wrong, okay? So you're going to create a module which has this liquid cooling in it, which has this water and oil, and then you're going to connect these batteries in parallel, I assume.
Both
parallel and series.
So we'll support up to 70 volts. So up to 16S chained in series, and then unlimited chained in parallel.
Okay. And then you've got some sort of BMS that's going to handle this.
Yep. So the system has a charged BMS on every 4S module. Okay. So each module will be charged by kind of a spider system that will pass along, and they'll charge extremely fast because of that. The output actually does not have a BMS on it. The output actually is monitored by a really accurate high current shunt, and then runs a 600 amp serviceable fuse. So basically the fuse would stop it from runaway, or if anything goes, really wrong, and then you would just have to replace the fuse in the cells if the cells did that. But it's to make the whole thing serviceable, and so that you can create just about any battery need you would possibly want. So for example, one of these would be a great power bank with a USB add-on for just, going around, having your laptop, whatever. Put a couple of them in series or parallel, you now have an e-skate or a scooter battery. Buy a big case, put 50 of them in parallel or series, now you have an EV car battery. So it's scalable all the way up through. And we're planning on making the module, or not the modules, but we haven't really gotten the naming down yet, but basically the other part. So like picture a big cube that you lock all these modules into. Now you have a power wall in your house, or it's a ready-made cell for an EV car. So the idea is more to break the batteries into their most simple but still technologically advanced, basic form, and then let other parts that people only buy to do what they want to do the rest of it. Does that make sense?
I think I understand. Yeah.
I think so. I was just going to ask another question about, just because we talked a bit about water cooling, but there's also the issue, I guess, as well about in the temperatures like we have in Scotland. It's often the other end of the spectrum. We have to worry about the batteries are freezing cold, and we all know what that does to battery range as well. So I noticed that Tesla's just in the Model Y have introduced a sort of water pump to keep the temperature solid, a bit more stable all the way through, and it's supposed to make a big difference to range. How do you feel about that kind of the other side of stabilizing the temperature?
So I think you're going to see, and we haven't had a chance to test them yet. And you have so many small heat sources within the enclosure itself. So the microprocessors, the shunts, all of that stuff. What you're going to have, and the pump, obviously, you're going to have some heat being generated within the aluminum enclosure. That's going to diffuse in the oil. So I think what you're going to...
Cool.
All right, cool. So, Andrew, are you still with us?
He seems to have dropped out there.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his website here, and I'm noticing that he sells a lot of conversion kits for like Mipu direct drive, all terrain. Andrew, are you back with us?
Did I lose you guys?
Yeah, I think he froze for a second there. Okay, we seem to have connection issues.
You guys.
Okay, I think you're back with us, Andrew. Maybe. Hello, Andrew? I think he's just going to come back in a second. So I'm noticing he actually sells a lot of conversion kits for all-terrain direct drive for your Mipu, for example, hub conversion kits, or all-terrain kind of add-ons for your hub drive.
Mm-hmm.
So it allows you to have your pretty if you're in the UK, you might be riding the Mipu up in Aberdeen, for example. It's pretty rough ground. There's a lot of conversion kits, because a lot of people buy these boards first time and they don't realize. Hello, welcome back.
Yeah, that flexibility to run that.
We're just talking about your website, and we noticed that you had a lot of sort of conversion kits for hub drive, Mipu type, backfire type boards to convert to all terrain.
Yep, that was one of our early ideas we came up with, was how do we leverage the hub motors to basically turn them into direct drive for guys that want it. Went really well. I mean, we've had a great system. I know we've had some other guys kind of jump on with similar designs with 3D Factory, and then I think it was, one of the actual board, the other big board companies, I want to say it was X-Way, just showed a prototype that looks surprisingly like our kit. But, again, we come back to it's early in the space, and everyone is kind of trying to figure out new ideas. So we're not real protective of ours. But I think...
What made you come out with that idea? Did you yourself have one of these boards, like a Mipu or something, and you wanted it to be more all-terrain?
So when we first started building boards, we were doing some belt and some hub. And we, honestly, with the all-wheel drive GT first launching from Meepo, we looked at it and went, okay, this thing is a monster. It's got more than enough power for what it's doing. So how can we take this and make it more like an Evolve 2-in-1? How can we take this and say, now you got your AT kit and your street kit, you can easily switch between. And that was the first gen, the one that you see that's either got the full red cans on it for the conversion. And that worked out really well. What happened was Meepo very rapidly after we designed that product changed to new motors. So they went into running that 100 mil hub that they've been running, which is a great motor. So we had to kind of alter our design at that point because no longer did you have a complete PU sleeve. You now had a PU sleeve with the magnets built into it. So that's when we designed the Mutant kit. And the Mutant kit literally works like changing tires on a car. It basically, the whole tire is attached onto a quick hub system that mounts exactly where the outer motor housing would normally go. So basically, you just take off your urethane sleeve and put on your AT tire extension and bolt it back down, and you're good. And that system has been wonderful. That's what's on our newest all-wheel drive Mutant.
And is that hub motor or direct drive? That would be kind of direct drive.
Technically speaking, it's direct drive because basically the difference between a direct drive motor and a hub motor is simply whether or not the urethane is over the axis or outside the axis. So we move it by using the machined part, but it's still the hub drive motor. It's the exact same motor. It's just we're kind of repurposing it as a direct drive motor. We're adding the wheel to the outside.
And could you, in theory, have street wheels as well on a similar kit?
Absolutely. So we did quite a bit of that early on with running ABEC 107s, running like the rough stuff wheels. The only reason I don't tend to recommend running the smaller wheels to customers is when you start getting, because of the cam, that's around the motor, when your wheel size starts to get about the same. I actually had a really bad crash at one point where I hit a sunken tile on the concrete, but because of how I hit it, it made contact with the motor housing protection, not with the tire, not with the board or the truck. So it literally crushed my trucks when it happened. So
it's a clearance.
To really watch their clearance. But it is the same issue you have with most of the direct drive setups that are out there. They're very close. The can size is very close to the large tires wheel size. So you just have to be very careful with it. But it's not actually our part that I worry about breaking. It's the rest of the board when you hit it like that. We've definitely trashed some trucks that way. But yeah, hypothetically, you can put just about any wheel on it. We've run 8-inch knobbies all the way down to, I want to say 97 millimeter ABEX at one point. That was real thin.
Yeah. Just noticing we've got a question. It was just before we dropped out earlier on from Michelle DeSwanton asking about what kind of size are you talking about for the enclosures with the cooling round about it?
So what we're looking at is a little different than the way a standard skateboard is put together. So usually what we see now is, one plastic enclosure, 2 plastic enclosures under the board. I personally am a big believer in top mount enclosures. I have just kind of by accident through all of our prototyping, it's usually much easier to just top mount when we're prototyping. So we do that a lot with like Pelican cases. I love that because it gives me ultimate clearance. It gives me great flex, and I actually have someplace I can walk my feet into on the board. I've also seen, obviously, a lot of guys running the Trampa style where they're in the middle. I don't love that one as much, but I get it. But what we're thinking is more of a hard drive about the size of, a normal external hard drive, about inch and a quarter thick, and they'll be aluminum, and they're going to be outfitted with mounting holes all over them. So think of video production, honestly, when you look at it, everything is kind of created so you can mount it anywhere, whether it be sighted camera on a light, whatever. That's what we're looking at with this. What I want people to be able to do is if they wanted to mount these individually, on the board, on the bottom, they could. They're strong enough, they're protected, they're water sealed, there would be no problem there. Also, they could mount those in enclosures on the top of the board, inside the board. It just kind of depends on how they want to set them up. Our biggest questions right now are how small can we make this? That is right now we're working at 10X. So I'm working with a battery that's, about this big. So we have the room to move around. The next step, once we have function there, is now we have to shrink everything. So it's going to be, hopefully, I would say, let's say 6 by 6 by 1.25. That would be my goal size with everything in for a 4S module. So you would need at least 3 of those for a 12S 1P.
Brilliant. So could you maybe put some pictures up of different layouts and that on, for us to share with the eSkate community?
Absolutely. So we're going to be doing
sometimes when people visualize it, it's better.
Yeah, I'm going to be releasing some renderings probably in the next week or so that'll have some of the casing set up so that people can see them. But yeah, I just haven't quite gotten there yet.
I seen on your website, Andrew, you also sell an ESC called the Crux.
Yes.
Is that custom design or?
So the vest that we sell is truly, it's the Flipski 6.6 Dual Plus. But what we did is we went in and negotiated a special pricing with Flipski to be able to take their unit and armor it in a way and set it up in a way that it is easier for people to just jump into versus, buying the vest, doing all the solder and trying to figure out how to keep, install it without dropping a live wire on it or any other problem like that. And the cooling, the protection, everything else. In the software itself, it is just the Flipski vest, but it's everything else that goes around it and comes packaged with it that makes it so much different. And it's the USA support you get through us. Because like what most people do when they buy the Crux is they say, hey, I'm buying it for this board, I'm pairing it with this battery, pairing it with these motors. Can you have everything ready for us and programmed and it's ready to go? And that's a lot of times what we do with it.
Got you. So you sell a lot of kits with
this? Yeah. And it's funny because Suki and I were talking earlier about this, but so much of just giving people access to some of this stuff, some of us are comfortable tearing into this stuff and learning ourselves. But a lot of people do not want to spend $600 to get something and blow it up. And that, it seems like that happens a lot.
That would be me.
Yeah, I've done that myself. So we try to make
an all-wheel setup on the Crux as well.
Oh, yeah. And dude, that thing, Flipski makes a great vest. It doesn't have a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't make mistakes. It is not, on the electrical side, you cannot drop things on it. You cannot screw up. You cannot arc wires. It will not survive that. So it is best if you don't know to have it set up in a way where it's protected, where everything is, ready for you and you just plug everything in.
So I see you guys have got a complete board. If someone wanted to buy just a board, you guys are selling the CARVlabs 8 all-wheel drive urban all-terrain Type R. Sounds a bit like the Honda Type R. So that's like a pretty powerful board, and it seems to have direct drive all-wheel. What kind of speed would you be getting out of that board? Is maybe a 200 pound?
So that board generally will do about 35 miles an hour. It'll do about 20 miles of range, depending on how it's being ridden. And we'll still, even with those tires, accelerate hard enough to really pucker you out. So a good video to see comparing that board is not Jay Boston. Forgot our gentleman's name that was just out here. But one of the e-skate reviewers did a review on his hill climb, or not on his hill climb, but on a flat where he showed that board. He showed some stock boards, and it just killed just about everything. Now, with that said, that's our oldest board. So the Chinese New Year, Christmas followed by Chinese New Year, followed by COVID-19. All some odd situations for us. So we had planned to launch in January officially our all-wheel drive Mutant board, which is the successor to the UATR. The Mutant drive board it's the same concept, but it is about 5 times more advanced in every way. It's a 10 kilowatt burst all-wheel drive board. It runs the quick change Mutant setup on all 4 corners. It's running 2 8 amp hour 40 amp 16 so basically 16 amp hour 40T 10S pack. It's got Bluetooth. It's got literally everything. This board stomps anything we've put it up against. But we have not been officially making them because we did not get the chance to kind of do a normal rollout or staff's been out. So a lot of what's been happening is people put in orders for the UAT Type R, and I end up messaging them and going, hey, quietly.
Board coming out.
Yeah, would you rather have a Mutant? We've actually shipped a couple Mutants quietly out right before everything totally shut us down. So we have some in testing out in the community right now. And the results have been great. We're very happy with the board. I would say, it's never lost a race to anything we've been able to get our hands on. I'll put it that way.
Never lost a race. Okay.
Sounds like with my big butt on it. I'm 230. But it'll, with the street tire or with the ATs on it, it'll do 45 miles an hour. We're pretty sure. I have not taken it there, but it moves. And traction's insane. It's powered by dual cruxes. So, I mean, it's just a fantastic board.
So no problem. If you're a big guy getting up the hill, it's definitely one to consider.
Oh yeah. No, there's actually a video, if you look on our Instagram, where I've got a GoPro on showing the speeds. I'm climbing literally the biggest hill we have in Boise. It is a probably 1.5 mile, 18% grade, something like that. I mean, it's a straight up freaking hill into the mountain street. And I was being limited up that hill, not by the power, but by my fear. I literally am going, and you can watch me speed way up and then slow down, speed way up and slow down, because I had never climbed something that steep at that speed. It was almost unnerving because you're accelerating so hard on a slant, so you feel like you're going to slide off.
Crazy.
And that was actually with the urethane tires on it. So.
One other thing we noticed was you do sort of custom MIPU boards.
Yes.
One with a VESC, repurposed with a VESC, the NLS, it looks like, and you do the NLS M Mini.
Yep.
What do you think was the inspiration for you to start modifying these boards and making them better?
When we started messing with the minis, there was legitimately not a high-power mini board picktail on the market. I think the most powerful thing I was seeing that wasn't DIY was from the Mini X from Boosted. So we looked at it and went, hey, people are going to want something that can actually climb in a short deck. So the first iteration was actually a 15 amp binary ESC, similar to what runs on our Type R in the board. And then we upgraded to the ER pack. We went to 100 mil wheels. From there, we got a little bored with it and we started throwing VESCs in them. And that's where things get really crazy on those short boards. But the point kind of was, just because it's short doesn't mean it can't be stable. And that's why we went up to the 100 mil. That's why we worked really good with the power curve. And again, in that review series we did, he actually got that board, I think, up to 30 or 31. And he got off. And he's like, it was terrifying, but shit, I mean, I did it on a short deck, and I couldn't believe I could pull it off.
I've done it a little bit myself. You just got to really respect the throttle on such a short stance,
Oh yeah. No, I think it's helpful to go like guys that ride the all-wheel drive GTs or boards like that are just torque monsters. They're perfect for transition over the short deck because you're already used to having that fear of punching it while you're moving and falling off. And that's, I feel like, the same thing you have on a short deck is you just got to kind of hover there and stay centered and not overreact to anything.
Respect the throttle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. One of the other things that we were thinking about was obviously not so much at the moment with the limits on travel, but trying the challenges of getting boards on flight and sort of quick release systems on board. So is there any way that your modular systems are going to be possibly?
Yes. So every one of those modules we're talking about, that the 4S module is perfectly flight capable and unlimited amounts of them. So because the way we're breaking them down into 4S, they're not restricted at all. And enclosed in the oil, they are not going to catch fire, especially with an aluminum outer. So as far as flying with them, I would say they're about the safest option I can think of. And that was part of it. I mean, truly, like we were talking about before we got on, I mean, being able to just hop on a flight and take your board, that should be the way things are. We just aren't there yet, but we need to be, breaking this up. And I've got to give Hoyt Street a little bit of credit here because honestly, the first person I saw do this was Hoyt with their battery modules. And I went, my God, these guys are brilliant. Why isn't everyone doing this? It could be broken down so that you can, have a small package.
Wait a minute. Explain to us what's special about the high-speed battery modules for anyone that doesn't know.
So simply the fact that they're broken down to a size that each one of them, I believe, is flight capable. And you can chain them together. And that's where we want to be looking at the battery, is to where you can break it down for moving it, storing it, whatever. And you're not storing this giant high voltage, high capacity pack or trying to travel with it. It should be a system where it can be broken down into manageable safety units easily by someone that's not a battery maker.
And do you think that more people aren't breaking them down because of the worries about creating stable connections with things that is that the main worry, do you think?
Connectivity is definitely one of the main concerns. And truly, when you're looking at, like, I guess, Meepo or a lot of the big guys, they're dealing with a scale that does make a battery like this a little harder. And they're also dealing with an abuse level that's a little different, and I hate to say that, but somebody that buys a Ferrari doesn't take the Ferrari out and beat the shit out of it. Somebody that buys a Honda Civic takes it out and beats the shit out of it. That's kind of your difference. And like, we even see this with our boards. Like, I know that, what was that?
I said it's so true.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a rental Honda. Especially if it's a rental.
Exactly. It's a rental Honda or a rental Ferrari. It's like you gotta take care of the stuff, and I think they are afraid that they're going to see severe abuse and that multiple packs connected or could be a danger. There is some point to that. With a company of our size, I feel like we have the ability to do the testing and the quality control to make sure that the way that these are connected will be stable. And we're looking at some very different solutions. I don't want to let all the cat out of the bag, but let's just say there's some cables we use every day that carry incredible voltage and incredible current that are really cheap because we have to have them, and they're already weatherproof. And that's what we're looking to for our connections. So
it'll be interesting to see.
Well, that's a big factor that I'll say about CARVlab, that as an engineer, people sometimes cringe when I say this, but we can do so much in our world today with cannibalizing things that already exist. Everyone wants to make it about creating something from scratch, from nothing. But in reality, a lot of times with all the parts, all the technology we have available, you can create a product by taking something else that's already being taken, created customize it further and use that. And that's something we've done really well with, is using everything available to make some of this stuff happen. Sometimes very unconventional.
Cool.
Brilliant.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to call time on it tonight. But if anyone wants to check out any of Andrew's stuff, his website is CARVlab.com. And he's always available in the chat groups on Facebook. Good night from me, Alistair.
Cheers.
Good night, guys.
Adios.